One of the biggest roadblocks that I think many of us use to stop us from stepping into our purpose is the fear that someone else is already doing what you want to do and they're doing it better than you could. Or so we tend to think. I think that this, if I look back, has been one of the biggest roadblocks for me. And today I just want to be really honest about what has actually helped me break free from this limiting belief and what has helped me finally start to put my ideas into action, because I want to help you do the same. So let's do this. Thanks for tuning in today. I love when I get to do these episodes where I get to just basically share with you all of the challenges that I have had, the ways I've gotten in my own way, in hope that it'll help you find some freedom. Number one, to not beat yourself up if you have these same struggles or same fears, to show you that, yes, everybody, even women who may be a step or two ahead of you in the journey, we all deal with these, but to give you some actual, tangible ways to move past them. And that really is one of the biggest reasons this platform, as far as our podcast, exists, is to get real about the fears and the doubts and insecurities that do stop all of us at one time or another. And just to give you a different perspective, because I know along my journey I've always had this habit of looking up to other women who I admired or wanted to do similar things as they were doing, and would find reasons to compare myself and to reinforce this belief that they had something figured out that I didn't. And the further I've gotten into my own journey, the more I've realized that the fear and the doubt are such a normal part of this whole journey. And the faster that we realize that those fears are normal, I think the faster we can get out of our own way and actually start putting our ideas into action. And, this fear that we're going to talk about today was one that really stopped me in my tracks for years. And the more women I talk to, the more I realize that more than a few of you are probably wrestling with some version of this. And that is the fear that, you have this big idea, but you also look around and you see that there's other people out there doing what you want to do, or something similar that has your mind start to question, gosh, could I do that? Is it too late for me? Is this space too crowded? Could I ever do it as well as that woman is doing it? And I think this fear that someone else is doing what we want to do and we believe they're doing it better than we could is such a lie. It is such a lie designed by our own mind to keep us small. But I get it, because I had been stopped by that for such a long time. But I have this new perspective, having, I think, just let that fear stop me for so long, and then now finally choosing to lean into it over the last several years and realizing just what a perfectly crafted lie that was to keep me small, to keep me doing the same things and not ever stepping out and doing what I really wanted to do. And it's funny when I think back to the year that we started Powerhouse Women, as in the year the book was released, the year we had our first event. It was 2017, and more specifically, I would say early in that year was when I started to have this vision for having an event. And I looked around in my community and I just said, wow, there's really nothing out there that exists like what I have the vision to create, where yes, women can network with each other. They can come and they can learn tangible skills for building a business or pursuing their passion project. But it really is all about community and actually supporting one another. I just don't see a whole lot of that. Well, fast forward, now it's been just a little over 2.5 years. And what's so cool to see is that at that exact same time, there were other women in my same community who were noticing the same need. And now, if you were to look, there's actually a handful of different organizations, groups, events, all targeting that same demographic of women, but each in our own unique way. And where it's cool to look back and see years ago, I would have been really intimidated by that. Like, where do I fit in to this whole scenario? Does my message stand out? Is it good enough? Now I look at it as, okay, this is further validation that there was such a need. There was such a need for the message that I was feeling called to share, that other women were getting the call to. That no one woman can reach every single human. And we needed all of these different voices sharing their version of a similar message in order to really make the impact that was needed. And so we're going to get into just some of the things that helped me really go from a space of, am I enough? Do I have a place in this whole tapestry of women doing powerful work? Is there room for me? Are other people going to do the same thing and do it better? What does that mean about me? To go from that mindset to one of true collaboration and to really be so comfortable staying in my own lane, knowing that there's absolutely a need and there's absolutely a place for me. It took a little while and it took some deep inner work to get there. And so no matter where you find yourself along this spectrum, even if you feel like this isn't something you struggle with, I just really encourage you to listen with a curious mindset today and just notice, is there maybe a blind spot that you weren't aware of, you hadn't identified, that could be contributing to you not moving forward as fast as you want to or collaborating at the level you want to? Because I think that this is one of those fears, doubts, insecurities, and then the breakthrough that comes with it, that it's like we're never really finished. I always have to be mindful of when, this lack mentality, that there's not enough to go around, when it creeps in, and it still does. And that just means that I'm a human being. But today, I want to leave all of us, myself included, with a few important reminders that I think are going to free you up to step forward and start creating what you feel called to create. Because I do believe that the ideas that you are feeling right now and that are trying to get your attention were given to you for a reason. So here's the first thing that really, really started to help me change this mindset and get over this fear that there were other people doing what I wanted to do. And it really hits more on this fear that if there were other people doing something similar, that they were going to do it better than me, that I wasn't enough, that I had so much, doubt and fear that I probably just should not even bother. And I think this is really, when we look at if there's other people doing something similar, this is really the part that stops us, is feeling like someone else is doing another version of this and doing it better. And I had to really look at that, because that for me was the piece that did stop me from wanting to move forward on creating any of the things that I was thinking to create. And I had to remember, there was this mentor I once had who had this great quote where he said, "Every master was once a disaster." Every master was once a disaster. And it was this way of reminding us that, yes, there's probably people that we look up to, and it's like this natural default that we start to compare ourselves. Okay, they're such a great speaker. I still get really nervous. They seem to have all this confidence. I really doubt myself. And our mind just automatically goes into this comparison mode. But I had to remember that whoever it was that I was looking up to or drawing inspiration from, that they were once a beginner too. And I'm usually comparing my beginning to their middle, meaning the middle of their journey. They might have been, investing into themselves and their personal development and their business, their idea for 2, 5, 10 years. And here I was just starting. So I was looking up to what I aspired to be like, but forgetting that that person was once a beginner too. So of course they're going to be better at whatever it is that I want to do. Of course they're going to be a better speaker if they've been at it longer and practicing longer. But it was probably one of the hardest lessons for me to learn and just really start to embody that, I had to be willing to be bad at something before I could get better and before I could become great. And it's never comfortable to be a beginner or be not as great at something as we would like to be. But just to remember, every master was once a disaster. So absolutely draw inspiration from what other people are doing, but never, ever, ever allow that to make you feel like you shouldn't be pursuing that path if you know deep down you are meant to be a speaker, a podcast host, an event host, whatever that might be. If you're feeling that call, that just means that there's someone out there who needs to hear your voice. They need to hear your version of the message that you're going to share, because you're going to share it differently. You're going to share your own take on it. And that kind of feeds into number 2, and I believe it was Gabrielle Bernstein. If you don't follow her stuff, she's a motivational speaker, a teacher, she's an author, incredible human being. And I remember watching, it was like a webinar or something that she did, and someone had brought up this same fear. And what she said was so brilliant. It literally struck a chord so deep within my own heart and soul. She said, you need to realize that there are more people who currently need the message that you want to share than the number of people currently sharing it. There is a much bigger need for businesses and podcasts and people sharing the message that we're not meant to do this alone. There's such a need. No one person could ever reach and resonate with every single human being. So the people that you resonate with, maybe there's a whole demographic of humans that wouldn't resonate with them, and they need to hear your version of it. And if you think about it, in terms of just the number of people hungry for information and solutions, I think about this like when I went to start a podcast. I remember thinking, gosh, I listen to so many podcasts. Is this too late? There's already so many great podcasts. Does anyone need another one? And I think I heard this on a podcast. They said, podcasting is really just in its infancy. There's still people who've never heard of podcasts before. And if you think about it, most shows are putting out 1, 2, maybe 3 episodes a week, the ones that are really cranking out content. And for most of us, I know for myself, on a given week, I'll listen to sometimes 5 or more podcast episodes, all different shows, and I love the variety. And so it was this reminder to me that just because one person is doing something that I really admire, and maybe I love their podcast, that doesn't mean that there's not more space for other voices and other perspectives. And it's always so easy to see the potential in other people and not see it in ourselves. It's so easy to see that other people would be great at something, and then we know our own fears and doubts, and we know the failures we've had in the past. So we just have to be really mindful of when it's the fear and doubt talking versus the part deep within you that says, like, gosh, I think I have something to share. I think I'm really meant to be doing this. And just this past weekend, I am a youth coach through our church, and we were having this coach meeting, and this quote that one of our mentors said really struck me. They said, they were talking about just the diversity of the different kind of women that were coaching these. They're like high school girls, so you can only imagine, right? A lot going on in their lives. And our mentor said, we have every different kind of coach in this room. So many different skills, so many different backgrounds, and we need every different kind of coach in order to reach every different kind of student. So these students that we're mentoring, they are all going to resonate with different people's experience. They're going to some need more of a mothering energy, some need a little bit of tough love. And there's every different kind of personality represented within, this group of coaches. And I thought, wow, that really so beautifully plays in to what I knew I was going to talk about today, that it just is the same. It's the same for any kind of impact we want to make, that there's there may already be others doing what you want to do, but there's going to be people who need to hear the message from you. You're the one they're going to resonate with. They're going to resonate with your background, your story, not anyone else's. So, enough playing small. There you go. There's your tough love for today. And then here's the third thing that really helped me start to move past this fear. Not that the fear wasn't there, but I just was able to start taking action even though I was still feeling that fear. And that was I needed to really intentionally start creating more and consuming less. So what I mean by that is consuming less of other people's content, especially people within the same space that I wanted to be in. So when I was writing a book, I read less books. I even listened to fewer podcasts if they were in the personal development realm because I wanted to clear space for my own unique ideas to come through. And what I found was really a trigger for me in just comparing myself to other people was listening to the people I really admired and looked up to. The more I listened to their stuff and saw how awesome they were and saw what a difference they made in my life, the more it actually triggered that fear. So if that's kind of the same thing for you, maybe you have to stop listening to certain podcasts. If you have to stop listening to this podcast for a little while to get yourself in creation mode, you have my blessing. I 100% want you to do that. I want you to, at least at the very, very least, create more content than you do consume. So if you still want to listen to podcasts and that really energizes you, make sure that, number one, you create before you consume, meaning you spend some intentional time early in the day before you go on social media or listen to a podcast, read a book. You create your own ideas first before you consume other people's. And then just quantity-wise, you really focus on creating far more than you consume. Especially if you're really looking to break through this fear and this hidden barrier of a limiting belief, you have to get really radically protective over your own creative energy. And that for me, just knowing myself and knowing that I tended to compare myself to people that I look up to, I just had to be responsible and know that, for a season, I was just not going to listen to a certain podcast or follow a certain person on social media. And it was actually out of love. It wasn't out of a dislike for that person. It was actually because I admired them so much. I wanted to make sure that it was my unique ideas and my unique voice coming through. It wasn't muddled with things I had heard them say, or I wasn't stifling my own voice because I ended up comparing myself to them. So let's just do a quick recap of what those three things were. And I really hope you take at least one of these, if not all three, and put them into practice and just see what a difference you notice, because I do believe that this can seriously start to free you up to move forward on the things that you feel called to create. So the first one was, just remember, every master was once a disaster. So if you see people doing a better job at what you want to do, know that they once started out as a beginner as well. And you can get there. You're going to be the one down the road at some point that other people are going to look up to too. You just have to be willing to be bad before you can be great. The second one is realizing that there's more people who need the solutions, the message, the story that you will share than the number of people currently offering it. And then the third one, again, just to create more and consume less of other people's content. And I really want you to allow these words to sink in as we start to wrap this up. I really want you to hear my voice. So clear distractions. And I want you to know from my heart to yours that I firmly believe that if you are feeling the call to create something, if you have a vision or an idea for a product, a service, a business, a passion project, if you just feel called to serve in a unique way, I want you to know that that vision or that idea was given to you for a reason. You are the one that is meant to carry that out. Now, you always have a choice. You don't have to step into that. But the biggest thing I need you to know, and this is going to give you so much freedom if you really hear me say this, the idea that you have, the vision that you have is not about you. It's not about you. It's not about your fear. It's not about what other people are going to think. The vision you have is 100% about who you will serve. And remembering that truth is probably the biggest thing that helped me get out of my own way, and still to this day helps me continue to get out of my own way. Because this is a never-ending journey. You're never going to be finished working through the stuff that stops you in your tracks, because there's always new versions of it. But hopefully after today's conversation, you have some new tools to really encourage you to take that next step forward, because I promise you, someone needs exactly what you are feeling called to create.